in a way also is what's if there is any how for any one of us, what it should be. You know, there is no answer to that. But nevertheless, I decided just to put it in a positive way and show in these green gardens with the dog man and this wonderful, beautiful girl just waking up from the white blankets and just to thinking of his father, you know, just to have a positive way of keep going with their life, you know, as everybody does here probably too.
Yes. Thank you for the movie. It's the first time I've seen a movie by Lisandro Alonso, and I was kind of thinking, I was curious to know if there was inspiration to like the way you shoot the scenes, like the quietness and stillness, but also a lot of intensity at the same time. And I was kind of thinking of some of the old England Burman, and I was also kind of thinking of old Western stuff, but and also the screen kind of being square, not so wide. I guess that's like maybe the old way of filming. But I was curious what you were thinking. Like, is it your own expression thing or inspired? And sorry for stammering. Talking in this is not so.
It's a big night for all of us.
Well, it's a teamwork. It's not only my work, you know. Many of the influence that you see in the film, like this John Ford, probably it doesn't came from me. Even if I'm extremely happy to take a picture just in the window, just in the corner of the Cinemateket with Lisandro and John Ford, it's wonderful, you know. I will show it to my son, you know. But I saw many different kind of great films, but once I'm start shooting, I just not forget, but maybe they are there still in a conscious way. But I'm not thinking about, okay, this is going to be like a, you know, Berman style or Kaurismäki style or Bresson. Or, there are so many great filmmakers. But so I take advantage of the coincidence. For example, the film was not composed in this radio, this 133 radio. It's like old-fashioned movies. I mean, all you know what I'm saying. It was composed in 185, but I was not happy because on the lab when we just sent the film to develop, they just put every day they put the wrong mask. So I just asked them, just send it full frame, man, because you're not doing it that well. So I started
chopping the head off and
yeah, like this or too much sky, you know. And we have been waiting for that for 2 weeks because we were like very far away from the lab. And once you receive that, you don't want to show it to no one, you know. So I just send it full frame, and I start to edit the film with this kind of radio, with the round corners. It's exactly what I get from the lab. And I thought, well, it's good, you know. It's not bad. So I'm joking here, but I think it was this kind of painting kind of format or antique way of watching movies. It was going to be better for me and for you and for the audience, that probably if they know that Viggo is going to be in the film. I mean, just I want to be like clear here, but with the rifle and a horse and there's some Indians in the middle, probably they are going to be waiting for some more action film. Or, you know, what is going to happen? Is he going to get back the girl or not? And I thought that if we put it in this kind of window, you are going to see the film in a different way, not waiting for this kind of action movie, you know, which I love them. I love action movies completely, but for this kind of film, I thought it was better for the rhythm of the film, just to have this kind of emptiness and just see Captain Dinesen walking alone, you know, in the middle of the rocks, in the middle of nowhere. I don't know. That's why it's my opinion.
We have another question down here.
Yeah. It's also for Lisandro. Sorry. I would like to ask you about the background story of this War of the Desert. What's the idea of this background story, and why is it not explored further? And is it a comment to Argentine history, or why is it playing out in this historical framework? And how does this connect with the JAUJA, if it does connect?
Well, there's not a lot of connections, just if you want to make it. I mean, it's not, you are not obliged to make connections in this film. But we just based in this kind of Campaña del Desierto, which is, there was a moment when the government tried to kill all the Indians, or at least put it back from their good places. But just in terms of, just to put our film in a place or in a moment. But I really, it's not my, wasn't my motivation to tell something about the historical or political, you know. Otherwise, I try to go the other way around, and that's what I decide. Maybe the main characters came from Denmark, you know. Otherwise, it maybe should be like from English guys. Sorry, Brian, but you know. Because I didn't want to put it in the place where people can say, no, that those were not the right boots, they were using it, and those Indians doesn't look like the Mapuches, so I just create this kind of strange Indians with a woman dress, and this kind of, you know, thing, just to make the film more unique in the sense it has his own universe, like a fairy tale or something like, you don't have to compare it with nothing else, you know. That's why the film is like that.
Thank you.
I think you look more as well because of the strangeness of some of the aspects in them. You look, if they're just looking, you look. You wait. You wait. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a good comment.
I mean, there's one thing that I think there's a general rule about that if you want to talk about something universal that anybody can relate to, the more specific you are about certain things, to a point. I mean, you don't have to elaborate. I mean, this is not a movie, and those are the kind of directors I like. This is not someone who's making a movie about ideas or trying to say to you in some analytical way, these are my ideas and I'm showing them to you. He's showing you life, part of life, a life, some lives, and he allows you to draw your own conclusions. I think he's the kind of artist who provokes questions, you know, and doesn't give you answers, which I think is the best kind of art and the most respectful way to deal with the audience and the best way to respect yourself as an artist, you know. I mean, if a Danish audience, you know, part of that audience is going to have a point of view when they see Captain Dinesen and his uniform, which is very specifically the uniform, and also the service medal indicates that he was in both the War of 1848 and the War of 1864 against the Prussians, and might think about, well, how much violence has he seen, and even if he's clumsy and so forth, there's a certain point when there is some violence or he seems familiar with it, then you draw conclusions. But you don't have to know anything. You can watch this movie in Taiwan and know nothing about Danish history. Just like in Denmark, you can watch, as you did, and not know maybe that much or anything about the 19th century Argentine history. If you do know, you might get some enjoyment, like this ditch that is shown, that is actually very specifically from that time, and it was dug to keep the Indians out of the greater province of Buenos Aires, and to make it harder for them to steal cattle and so forth from the colonizers. But you don't have to know that. It's just really interesting that there's this big, you know, fucking ditch there. It's like, what are they doing? You know, and you have all these sort of immigrant labor there working, and that's all very factual, but it's also strange, so it's interesting. And in the context of Patagonia, it's strange to the point of making Dinesen look like a sort of Danish Don Quixote or something, that he's wearing this uniform with these boots and these spurs and this service medal, you know, because it also speaks to the fact that he's doing the, you know, the sort of typical Northern European or Scandinavian methodical approach to solving problems. Okay, this is what I do at home. When I have one of these problems, I put on my uniform and I deal with the situation step by step. Der må være en forklaring for alt. Jeg skal nok finde ud af det. I'm going to be patient. There's an explanation for everything. And it's like this attempt to solve everything with logic, the rational, modern European mind, I guess, in a place where it doesn't quite work, less and less as the story goes on, and dealing, always thinking in linear time, and that doesn't work either in this situation, or the situations he's in. And so the more he's behaving what for him and maybe for us, I don't know, is normal. Yeah, of course, he's trying to find her, he's trying to find her trace of her, he's asking questions. But even at the very beginning, you know, we don't know if Dinesen agrees or not with Pitaluga, Lieutenant Pitaluga, that all Indians should be, you know, eradicated, should be killed. Maybe he does. But he does want to know their specific names of the tribes before he kills them all. And then he can go home and write a book in Denmark about it, maybe, or write it in his journal, I don't know. It's this sort of strange, the more he's trying to be rational, the more strange in contrast it seems. I mean, that's what I love, what you take these jumps, you know, in the same way. Like there was a movie that we looked at, we were talking about outside, that Fabian and Lisandro looked at, and I looked at, you know, before shooting. Not that it had anything to do with what we did at all, but it was just the idea. There are some directors who have a gift, like you do, for taking bold steps, playing with the idea of time or reality as we like to see it, or believe it exists. And this movie was Ord of Carl Dreyer, where incredible things happen, and where you think someone's crazy and then you're not sure they're crazy, and things that are just impossible happen, but in a very organic, natural way in that story, if you know this movie. And that's what you do, you know, you make these bold leaps, but each time you see this movie, each time I've seen it, I've seen more layers that are leaps, you know. It's not just when Dinesen falls asleep under the stars, and then the next day, the weather, the landscape, everything's different. And he doesn't even know how much it's different. He doesn't know that time is completely different, everything, until he doesn't even know when he meets this woman in the cave. He's still doing this rational, okay, I'm listening to what she's saying, it doesn't quite, she sounds like my wife, my daughter, my mother, yes. And he's very politely trying to, you know, he's still trying to make sense of it, you know, until he finally gets so tired outside and he's like, I don't know, you know, but these steps very early in the movie, the very first scene, when we're sitting together and she's asking about the dog, and I say, yeah, and I'm teasing her a bit, and oh, that's a very difficult kind of dog to find, and so forth. And then she seems sad, and then I say, well, we'll find a dog, don't worry about it. And she's happy, and she leans on my shoulder, and she closes her eyes. And the second time I saw the movie, I realized what you obviously knew, you know, but I had my back to her shooting, you know. And then the first time I saw the movie, I was just taking in everything, the beautiful lighting by Timo Salminen, everything. The sound of the grass and the wind, and you know how beautiful you looked, and how I loved the way you're holding the book, and just everything. It was just overwhelming, just from the first moment. The second time I saw it, I realized you went like this, and you closed your eyes, and they stayed closed for the rest of the scene. I'm like, that's the first dream. It's already beginning, you know. And then each time I've seen it, I've seen more. So you do this in very subtle, discreet ways, and then suddenly you go wham, and you do this and then you go there, and then you go there, and very few filmmakers can do that, certainly in really what isn't not a special effects movie at all, but just right in your face, you know, just I'm going to do this. This is, and the characters are going to act like it's real, because it is real. I'm showing it to you. There's no tricks, you know, but it's still inexplicable, you know. That's what's beautiful about it, in terms of what is said and what is seen.
Wonderful to hear you, Viggo. Keep talking.
I was just
Sorry to ramble on.
Viggo Mortensen,
I love it. I love it.
Can you be bought as podcast? That was his joy. We have a question over here.
Yeah, hi. This is for whoever wants to answer it. And I think you already touched a little bit upon it. The awkwardness of this Denison, how it's very endearing, his mannerisms and all that. And I was wondering how being a foreigner and being estranged from the country you're in and from your daughter,